parties, like Labour Party and Conservative, is always just between them two because of the system first past the post. And I felt that both parties never offered anything different, and they were very, you know, centre ground politics, compromising on values and morals. But Jeremy Corbyn, he held it down. He didn't sway right, left. He stayed true. And issues I was passionate about is also the stop and search, and how the police industry targets BME communities at a rate 8 times more likely than their white counterparts. And this brother, Jeremy Corbyn, was writing witness statements defending Eritreans and BME brothers and sisters who had been targeted. Jeremy Corbyn is symbolic for me of an alternative politics, one that puts people at the heart of policies, one that's looking to challenge Islamophobia, and that was reflected in the manifesto because it was the only one that actually even mentioned Islamophobia. It was also looking to abolish tuition fees and provide people with opportunity. He's taking my limelight, please stop. And it also wanted to recognise the state of Palestine. So, big up. That's something I'm passionate about. I can talk about this all day, but I don't want to steal his limelight, even though I'm enjoying it. But you know what? Let me not. This is Jeremy's thing. I'm going to leave it on this note. My name is Amal Badair. Amal means hope in Arabic, which means that, you know, obviously I'm hopeful that we can have a Labour government next general election, one that will make these policies become a mandate and become legitimate. So thank you guys so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello Brighton. I'm Andy Fox from the TSSA, the Union for People in Transport and Travel. I also have the great privilege of serving with Jeremy on Labour's National Exec. So welcome to what's set to be one of the best Labour conferences in years. This year, 7,000 Labour members will be visiting our conference, the biggest number in a decade. There will be over 450 fringe events, including the brilliant The World Transformed Festival, organised by our friends in Momentum. A festival of ideas, music and culture. It's like Glastonbury without the mud and the queue for the toilets and possibly the baby wipes. And more importantly, this conference will see more members having the opportunity to speak. This will literally be a conference for the many and not the few. But why are so many people coming? Because Jeremy and Labour fought the most remarkable general election campaign in decades. Do you remember back in April, the media wrote us off. They said we didn't stand a chance. The Tories threw everything at us. But the people saw through Theresa May and finally realised what we knew all along, that Jeremy is somebody who can not only lead Labour, he can lead this country. Our brilliant manifesto proved you can be radical and credible. A positive manifesto of hope and opportunity that inspired both young and old. A manifesto that pledged to scrap tuition fees so you can have an education because you want one, not because you can afford it. A manifesto that pledged to lift the pay cap on our nurses, our teachers and our firefighters by making the rich and corporates pay a little more in tax. And I'm proud to say, a manifesto that pledged to take our railways back into public ownership. Companies and governments own our trains. They're internationalised when they should be nationalised. The commentators said our manifesto was too left-wing. They said it would take Britain back to the 70s, that Labour would be finished in a Tory landslide. And the voters disagreed in their millions. We gained 3.5 million more votes. we gained 30 seats, and we won in places nobody gave us a chance to win. Labour won in Canterbury, Kensington, Chelsea, Colne Valley, Stockton South, and even Warwick and Leamington. We started winning seats back in Scotland from the SNP, and we won in Croydon Central, where the Tory MP Gavin Barwell was quoted as saying, "The more Jeremy Corbyn is seen in Croydon, the happier I'll be." Well, the people of Croydon quite like Jeremy, and best of all, we beat the Tories right here in Brighton. Peter Kyle increased his majority in Cove, and Lloyd Russell Moyle won back Kent Town. I know we didn't win the election, but it showed what we can achieve when we are a united party. Unions, MPs and members attacking the Tories and not each other. We did that in just several weeks of an election campaign. Just imagine, people, what we can achieve if we stay united and campaign all year round. Because that's what we're doing. Most politicians take a break during the summer. Jeremy spent his summer travelling to 40 target seats that we need to win to get back to number 10. A permanent campaign to win more support for Jeremy and Labour. A party united behind our leader and beside the people. So let's have a great week at conference, and let's all work together to get Labour where it belongs, back in government, so we can deliver power and opportunity for the many and not the few. Hand over to Jenny.
Thanks, Andy. I'm Jenny Formby, and I also sit on the NEC with Jeremy and with Andy as well. And it's amazing to be here tonight and see so many people. And it's so exciting to be going into a conference where we've got more delegates than we've ever seen before. That's democracy in action. Hundreds and hundreds of Labour Party members, many of them new to the party, come to the conference and taking part in our decision making. Now, I've been asked to talk a little bit about party reform, which may be a bit dry, but it's not. It's really exciting, and it's one of the best things that Jeremy is bringing to our party to make sure that everyone has a voice. I've been a member of the NEC for the last 6 years. That's the governing body of the Labour Party, and I have to say, for those of us on the left, sometimes it's been a little bit hard going, particularly last year, when we had to fight the battle, which should never have been fought, to make sure that Jeremy got his rightful place on the ballot paper to be leader of our party. Well, thank God we won that battle. And what an incredible party we've become since Jeremy's been our leader. Hundreds and thousands of new members, people from every background, from every community, and especially young people. I mean, it fills my heart with joy after 40 years of Labour Party membership to see so many young people flocking to this party. All of them are coming because they're excited by the message of hope and Jeremy's vision for change of what our society could look like. And our manifesto policies, of course, showing how that would happen. Making sure that we prioritise affordable housing for everyone, properly funded public services, including our NHS, decent care for everyone who needs it, an industrial strategy that actually is going to boost our economy, and my God, don't the Tories need some lessons on how to build our economy. And really importantly, making the wealthy and the privileged, powerful multinational companies pay their bloody taxes so we can fund it. So it's no wonder so many people are turning to Labour. They've breathed new life into our party. They've got active in campaigning. And as Andy just said, they made a massive difference in the general election. But our new members must not just be seen as an army of foot soldiers. Of course, that's really important. And I'm just going to say huge congratulations to Momentum for doing such a brilliant job in mobilising people in every constituency across the UK. They do a brilliant job. But we've got to give those members a voice at every level of our party. That's really important, and that's why the rule changes that the NEC approved last week and that are coming to conference this week are so important. With 3 new members from the constituency party on the executive, giving ordinary members a voice, another seat for trade unions, making sure that Jeremy, the most committed trade unionist who we've ever had as leader, is able to continue to promote and strengthen the solidarity and the links that exist between the trade unions and the Labour Party. And of course, it's absolutely right to lower the threshold of nominations needed by MPs in leadership elections. Progress, the long-standing voice of the right of our party, are fundamentally opposed to this, which could be a good reason to vote for it, by the way. But it's absolute rubbish to suggest, as they do, that it's bad for parliamentary democracy. How can greater involvement from our ordinary members, constituency Labour parties and their MPs building a relationship together, how can that be anything but positive for parliamentary democracy and, most importantly, for the democracy of our party? So these proposals will make sure that our members get the opportunity to elect the leader they want, just as we did with Jeremy Corbyn, not once, but twice. And this review of party democracy that Jeremy's launched will take us even further. It will make sure every element of our party is diverse, it's inclusive, it's accountable, and above all, it's democratic. We've come so far and there's so much more we can do. And I'm really excited as we go into this week of party conference. I'm sure all of you will have a brilliant conference. So thank you very much and enjoy. And I have to say, although I am really looking forward to one of our heroes, which is Jeremy speaking in a minute, I am massively privileged to introduce someone who's been one of my heroes for many years, which is Martha Osborne, legendary activist, amazing woman, Martha.
Thank you, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Brighton. My name is Martha Osborne. I came to the UK in 1963 from Nigeria to join my husband. Back then, we lived in one small room in Tottenham with little kitchen. We had no bath and the toilet was outside in the garden. But we had each other and our 4 children. We had hoped to return to Nigeria. My husband went ahead but died in a car accident. I was in a foreign country with my kids, but I was not alone. Jeremy and the Labour Party were there for me. Being a black single mother in North London was difficult. Jeremy was a local councillor in Haringey. Back then, he stood out from the crowd, not just because of the long hair and bushy beard. He had values, integrity, and decency. Jeremy supported me from the early days, helping me with my campaigns and encouraged me to get more in politics. And it wasn't just me. He inspired my daughter, Kate, to believe that a young woman could make a difference in politics. Today, I'm proud to say that little girl sits in Jeremy's shadow cabinet. As Labour's Shadow Secretary of State for International Development. The beard may be trimmed, the hair a lot shorter from the man I first met more than 40 years ago. But Jeremy is the same principled man, someone you can trust, someone who will stand up for you, someone who will fight for you, someone who will lead. Jeremy has always been a people's champion, and he always will be. Just the kind of person you want on your side. There are those who fear him and us. The general election, they resorted to smears and slurs. They made personal attacks. They were very nasty. And my sister Diana Abbott received almost half of all abusive tweets sent to female MPs. Shame on them. Shame on them. But they held their heads high, offered the people hope, and made June the end of May's majority. But they don't call it the struggle for nothing. For the first time in 7 years, brothers and sisters, we are on the brink of something historic. A Labour government that's true to our socialist values. Not the few. So, brothers and sisters, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you my comrade, my friend, and my leader, Jeremy Corbyn.
Such spirit, such energy and such determination to our party, our movement and our society. Thank you for everything you do. Brighton is a city that has given place and space and hope and opportunity to so many. And this morning I was playing table tennis with a group of people. Very badly, I have to say. They taught me a lot. They were young people from Brighton. They were refugees from other parts of the world. They were people who had been up against it. They came together in a spirit of sanctuary, hope and unity to say, if you're a refugee here in Brighton, you're welcome, work with us, and we will help you develop your life. I want to say thank you to the people of Brighton. In great difficulty, she lived in great poverty. She had many personal problems and tragedies. But you know, she talks about when we first met in the 1970s. She didn't ask me about anything for herself personally, ever. She was always asking about her neighbours, her community, the racism they faced, the discrimination in this country. And you know what? We're stronger for it. We're stronger for that unity and being together. That's what our rally is about. The election campaign showed something very special about this country. We were told, as John said, well, I don't know why he's got a problem about people with grey beards. I really don't. I'm going to have a word with him later on about that. It's outrageous. It's only because he hasn't got one. I tried, but you know, you can't persuade everybody to do everything. I keep trying. He won't grow a beard. And so he condemns those of us that have got one. It's outrageous, it's appalling, and I'll deal with it. But is the end of Labour, the end of socialism, the end of the whole century-long tradition. And they kept on doing that. And they kept on convincing each other that they'd convinced each other to be right. Because they were only ever talking to each other. And so we went out there with a manifesto that said something very, very different. We also went out there with 2 million more people registered to vote, because so many of you took the trouble to get online, get yourself registered, and get all your mates registered as well, because we were not going to let them take away the hopes of a whole generation by their meanness, nastiness, and austerity-led politics. And we took that campaign out around the country. I did 100 events myself all around the country, and I tell you what, in the next election we're going to do even more. And we showed some out there. So we faced up to them, and we faced them down, and we put on 3 million more votes than we achieved in 2015. Those came from people who wanted to live in a better, a different world, and thought there's some things we can't afford. People always tell me there's lots of things you can't afford. Well, I know that, absolutely. I do know that. But the one fundamental thing we, all of us, every single one of us here, can't afford is the inequality of our society and the absurd level of riches amongst the minority at the expense of the majority. And that Tory camp ended up in Parliament and decided that they couldn't pay the nurses, couldn't pay the firefighters, couldn't pay the police officers, couldn't pay the council workers, but there was £1 billion found for the DUP. Now, no, don't be unkind, please. Ours is a kinder form of politics. There are 10 DUP MPs. Each one of them is utterly brilliant in every way. And they're so brilliant, each one is worth £100 million. Imagine what you could have done with that money. How many students challenging them day in, day out? And when we put 2 motions to Parliament, one on student fees and the other on NHS pay, they didn't even dare vote against them. They let them go through unopposed because they knew they were going to lose. 3 months after a general election, what happened to Strong and Stable? What happened to Principled and Determined? My goodness, they told us all these cuts were good for us. Well, if they really believe that, maybe they should have voted on it. However, we go back there after conference, we challenge them again, we challenge them next on the plight of waspy women all around this country who've been denied the pension they deserve. Yet another Tory injustice. And we challenge them on the way they're handling the negotiations with the European Union. Because what they're doing, listen, read Boris Johnson's article, read what they're all saying. They want to destroy the workers' rights, environment rights, consumer rights. They want to turn this country into an offshore tax haven on the shores of Europe. They have given no guarantees, which we will give immediately to all EU nationals living here because of the work they do, the contribution they make to our society. And we're not going down that road of tax havens on the shores of Europe. We're going down the road of protecting jobs, protecting rights, enhancing rights, and working with people across national borders and frontiers to bring about that better world and that more prosperous world. That's the message we're going to be so clearly putting now and all through this campaign and in the future, because that really is the only future that's available for all of us. What's Theresa May done? Cozied up to Donald Trump, cozied up to transatlantic trade and investment partnership, straight type of deals which would damage our rights, damage our environment, and lead to a disgusting race to the bottom in consumer rights, working conditions, and environmental protections on both sides of the Atlantic. That is where international free market, free-for-alls lead you to. We are not going down that road. And whilst we're on the subject of Donald Trump, I'm sorry about this, I don't want to ruin your evening. No. I don't want to ruin your evening. I just quite simply say this. If you just cozy up to do a sort of cozy trade deal with Donald Trump, it's not going to work. It's going to damage all of us. And we have to say, we want to live on one planet. There is, as far as I know, only one planet that has human life on it. Donald Trump may know different. He's an incredibly well-informed man, he may. But so far the evidence is pretty thin on that subject. And so, a Labour government would pick up the phone to Donald Trump and say, the Paris Climate Change Agreement came about not just because of those intensive 3 weeks negotiations that went on in Paris, but because of 50 years of environmental campaigning by people all over the world that were concerned about their rivers, their forests, their air quality, their seas, and wanted to leave a world in a better order for the future rather than a worse one. They wanted to live in a sustainable world. Off the coast of Brighton, you see that wind farm. Surely that is a message of what we can do. We can do without damaging our environment or our planet. And so we work together on putting policies forward for the future. Policies forward for the next election, policies forward in our party. In the election campaign, we made it clear we wanted an education system properly funded that's there for all. We wanted to end the scandal of £9,000 a year student fees in university, college fees and adult fees, and the loss of educational maintenance allowance, which has been so damaging to so many working class kids who haven't got into college or university because they couldn't afford to stay. So we will invest that money. We have a National Health Service that is the greatest achievement of our lifetime. Health care free at the point of use as a human right for all. It's under threat. It's under threat from privatisation, from underfunding, under threat from the mental health crisis, under threat from the social care crisis. There is no other way other than properly funding it. Selling off bits of land, trying to reorganise it endlessly in order to save bits of money here and there is not the answer, any more than privatising aspects of it or selling off particular services, in some cases to companies that run them and then have the temerity to place their profits in some tax haven somewhere else. Think it through. Our money into our NHS ends up somehow or other in a tax haven. It's not right and not happening. And so we'll fight on that, and we'll fight to end the scandal of the mental health crisis in this country by challenging the stigma, but also properly funding the support that all those people suffering, and a quarter of us do or will in our lifetime. We can and we will do it. There's so much that we have to do. So much we have to do. I just want to say a couple more things. Brighton is a wonderful place. And but you also notice in Brighton, as in Bournemouth, as in Hastings, as on the streets of London, Birmingham, Manchester, Newcastle, Glasgow, Edinburgh, you name it, what do you see every night? The sadness of homeless people looking for somewhere to live, looking for somewhere to survive. They are not the cause of the housing problem. They're a symptom of a housing problem that this government has failed to address. And so it is about building more council housing with lifetime tenancies and not saying some or other council housing is out of date and out of time. All those families that were rehoused after the destruction of the Second World War in council houses with lifetime secure tenancies benefited from it. all those that were rehoused in the 60s and 70s of the building that went on then benefited from it. It's the Thatcherite grab of making money the idol we should all follow, rather than the social needs of the community come first, that is the root cause of the problem we face. So I'm determined, with your help, we'll develop not just the overall policy, but the detailed policies of what we want to achieve decency for all in housing, and, if I may say so, regulation. Proper regulation of the private rented sector. But we also have to have an economy that grows and expands, and that there are good quality jobs for the future. That's why we are committed to a national investment bank, while we're committed to regional investment agencies, while we're committed to investing in high-tech, sustainable industries in the future. Public investment should not be seen as a dirty word. Public investment should be seen as the basis of prosperity for all of us, rather than the growing inequality brought about by the lack of it. And so I want to make those centrepiece in our policies. And I'm not afraid to say, and I'm sure nobody on this platform would disagree with me, that public ownership of our railway system would be a great benefit to Brighton. Say, I really do admire Southern Railways. I really do admire Southern. No, this is a very serious point. It's a very serious point. Please, no booing. It's very unfair. It's totally wrong. You shouldn't do it. This weekend, there's a lot of people in Brighton for the Labour Party conference. Lots of people come from all over the world to come to our conference. There's thousands and thousands of people. I think it really shows that they treat everybody equally badly. They've cancelled just as many trains this weekend as they do every other weekend. So we're all suffering exactly the same. Listen, let's invest in our railways. We've put the public money into the track. Let's get the benefits of the rolling stock as well, and have public ownership of the train operating companies. And we are determined also to bring the water industry and Royal Mail into public ownership, because they are monopolies that should be held by us. And it is about investment, and I'm very keen to do that. But you know what? Socialism, social justice is about lots of other things. I want a government that doesn't cow down before the rich and powerful around the world, that does stand up, and when abuses of human rights take place, wherever they take place, we speak out on it. Be it Saudi Arabia or anywhere else, we speak out on it. Because the refugee crisis is caused by injustice, caused by poverty, but also caused by abuses of human rights. Let's rebrand ourselves as a party that's out there on human rights, justice, peace and democracy all around the world. The victims of war have to be supported. The wars of the future must be prevented. That surely has to be the right way forward. But it's also about rights at work and rights everywhere else that we'll be campaigning on. But it's also about the creativity that's there in all of us. And Brighton is such a place of such creativity. When children grow up, they learn to crawl, they learn to walk, they learn to speak, they learn music, they learn song, they think of poetry, they start painting, they start acting, and their imagination, their creativity runs all over all wild all over the place, and it's wonderful to see. I want all of our children to have those chances. So I want all of our children to be able to get music lessons and art in schools, and support for theatre and creativity, because the human being is naturally creative. And so it will be a Labour government that will invest in the arts. It will be a Labour government that won't bow down before the Murdoch empire whenever it raises its head. And we want access to that creativity that's there in all of us. That's what we're really about. Tonight, we're at a rally just before the Labour Party conference is held. I don't think there's ever been an event like this to start conference off before. And I first went to a Labour Party conference many, many years ago, and what a fantastic atmosphere it is. Because we're a movement, we're a party, we're a society determined to do things differently. It's determined to change things, determined to conquer inequality and injustice in our society and be that force for change in the world. And that is what's different. We showed during the election campaign people coming together in a creative ambition for the collective good, a creative ambition to ensure that every child is able to develop to the fullest of their potential. Every person that needs care and support is given that care and support when they need it. A society that genuinely cares for all, rather than the arid, nasty individualism that we inherited from the Thatcher era. So, our party, us, are a movement for social change. You don't achieve that change just by what you do in those frenetic few days or weeks before an election. You achieve it by the debate and the conversation that we have. Our forefathers and mothers before us gave us the vote, gave us the National Health Service, gave women the vote, gave us human rights, gave us equality, gave us the principles of anti-discrimination legislation. We don't turn our backs on them or forget them, but we use the digital age and the age of the public meeting and the age of coming together in this wonderful 21st century to bring about the social justice we want, to bring about the society we want, to bring about the unity we want, and together, we can and will do it. Thank you very much.